The morning sun streamed through the tall windows of Windsor Castle as King Charles III stood at his desk, reviewing the day's schedule. His weathered hands held a cup of tea that had long grown cold, his mind elsewhere. The weight of the crown felt heavier these days, not because of its physical presence, but because of the emotional burden that came with every decision he made as monarch. Charles had always been a man caught between duty and heart. For decades, he had navigated the complex waters of royal protocol while trying to maintain genuine human connections. Now, as king, those challenges had only intensified. The castle felt different since his mother's passing, quieter in some ways, yet filled with new responsibilities that seemed to multiply daily. Outside his window, he could see the gardens where he often walked with his thoughts. Today, however, his attention was drawn to a folder on his desk marked with the royal seal. Inside were photographs and updates from recent public engagements, including several featuring his daughter-in-law, Catherine, the Princess of Wales. Her radiant smile and natural grace in every image reminded him of someone he had lost too soon. The resemblance between Kate and his late first wife, Diana, had not escaped Charles's notice over the years. It wasn't just their physical similarities, though those were striking enough. Both women possessed that rare quality of making everyone around them feel seen and valued. They shared an innate ability to connect with people from all walks of life, whether comforting a grieving widow or playing with children at a hospital. Charles remembered the early days when William first brought Kate to family gatherings. She had been nervous, naturally, but there was something about her composure and genuine warmth that immediately put him at ease. Unlike many who sought the spotlight that came with royal connections, Kate seemed almost reluctant to embrace the attention, focusing instead on supporting William and adapting to their unique world. As the years passed, Charles had watched Kate grow into her role with remarkable grace. She handled the intense media scrutiny with dignity, never complaining publicly about the constant cameras or the invasion of privacy that came with being a senior royal. Her dedication to her charitable causes reminded him daily of Diana's passionate advocacy work. Yet Kate had managed to carve out her own distinct path. The king set down his teacup and picked up another photograph from the folder. This one showed Kate at a recent children's hospital visit, kneeling beside a young patient's bed, her face animated as she listened to a story. The genuine joy in her expression was unmistakable, and Charles felt a familiar pang of recognition. Diana had worn that same expression countless times during her own hospital visits. Recent months had been particularly challenging for the royal family. Public opinion polls showed growing concerns about the monarchy's relevance in modern Britain, and there were whispers about whether the institution could maintain its connection with younger generations. Charles knew that Kate represented something vital to the future of the crown, a bridge between tradition and modernity, between the formal requirements of royalty and the authentic human touch that people craved. His thoughts were interrupted by a gentle knock on the door. His private secretary entered with the day's correspondence, but Charles's mind remained fixed on the woman who had become such an integral part of their family's story. Kate had given them George, Charlotte, and Louis, three bright lights who brought laughter and normalcy to even the most formal royal occasions. Charles thought about the Sunday lunches at Sandringham, where Kate would help serve the meal and chat easily with staff members, treating everyone with equal respect. She had a way of making the grandest rooms feel like home, and her children reflected that same down-to-earth quality, despite their extraordinary circumstances. The king had noticed subtle changes in recent months. During public engagements, he found himself increasingly drawn to conversations about Kate's work. Members of the public would approach him with stories about her kindness, her accessibility, and her genuine interest in their lives. These encounters reminded him of the early days of Diana's popularity, when people would light up merely at the mention of her name. But there was something different about Kate's approach. Where Diana had sometimes seemed overwhelmed by the intensity of public adoration, Kate appeared to have found a sustainable balance. She embraced her role fully while maintaining clear boundaries, protecting her family's privacy without seeming distant or unapproachable. Charles walked to the window and gazed out at the grounds where his grandchildren often played during weekend visits. George, with his serious demeanor and natural curiosity about royal duties, reminded Charles of William at that age. Charlotte possessed a spirited independence that delighted everyone around her, while young Louis brought an infectious energy that could brighten even the most solemn royal gathering. Watching Kate with her children revealed another layer of her character that deeply moved Charles. She was a hands-on mother who prioritized normalcy within their extraordinary circumstances. School runs, birthday parties, and bedtime stories remained sacred parts of their routine, regardless of official duties or public obligations. The king realized that somewhere along the way, his appreciation for Kate had evolved into something deeper. She represented hope for the monarchy's future, but more than that, she had become a source of personal comfort. In her steady presence and unwavering commitment to family values, he found echoes of the woman he had loved and lost, yet also discovered something entirely new and precious. As afternoon approached, Charles prepared for his next engagement, but the folder of photographs remained open on his desk. Each image told a story of dedication, grace, and authentic connection with the people they served. Kate had not merely married into the royal family, she had enhanced its very essence, bringing fresh energy while respecting timeless traditions. The king understood that in focusing more attention on Kate's contributions, he was not just recognizing her individual merits, he was acknowledging a truth that had become increasingly clear. She represented the royal family's best hope for remaining relevant and beloved in an ever-changing world. Her natural ability to connect with people across generational and cultural divides made her invaluable to the crown's future. Standing in the quiet grandeur of his office, Charles felt a profound sense of gratitude for the woman who had brought such light into their lives, even as other shadows seemed to grow longer with each passing day. The grand ballroom of Buckingham Palace buzzed with quiet activity as staff members prepared for the evening's state dinner. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across polished floors, while florists arranged elaborate centerpieces featuring roses from the palace gardens. Charles moved through the space with practiced ease, inspecting details that most would overlook, but his attention kept drifting to the guest list in his hands. Tonight's dinner would honor visiting dignitaries from several Commonwealth nations, and Charles had specifically requested that Kate take a prominent role in the evening's proceedings. The decision hadn't gone unnoticed by palace staff, who had grown accustomed to different protocols in recent years. There was a palpable shift in the air, a sense that priorities were being quietly reorganized. In her private sitting room, Kate reviewed her notes about each guest she would meet that evening. She had spent hours preparing, learning about their country's current challenges and opportunities, their cultural traditions, and their personal interests. This thorough preparation was characteristic of her approach to royal duties. She never wanted anyone to feel that their conversation was superficial or rushed. Her lady-in-waiting helped her into an elegant evening gown, a deep sapphire blue that complemented the historic jewels she would wear. The tiara had belonged to Queen Elizabeth II, and wearing it always reminded Kate of the responsibility she carried as a representative of the monarchy. But tonight felt different somehow, more significant than the many state dinners she had attended before. As Kate made her final preparations, Charles was in his study having a quiet conversation with his closest advisors. They discussed the evening's agenda, but underneath the formal planning lay deeper considerations about the monarchy's future direction. The advisors had noticed the king's increasing reliance on Kate's presence at major events, and several had gently inquired about the reasoning behind these choices. Charles explained his thinking with characteristic thoughtfulness. The Commonwealth nations represented the monarchy's most important international relationships, and Kate's natural warmth and genuine curiosity about different cultures made her an ideal ambassador. Her ability to make people feel valued and heard had proven invaluable in strengthening these crucial bonds. One advisor mentioned recent polling data showing Kate's approval ratings consistently ranking among the highest of all royal family members. Her popularity transcended age groups and political affiliations in ways that surprised even seasoned palace watchers. People trusted her, felt connected to her story, and saw in her a representation of modern British values. The conversation was interrupted by a staff member announcing that the first guests had arrived. Charles straightened his white tie and made his way toward the palace's grand entrance, where Kate was already greeting visitors with William at her side. The sight of the three of them together, representing past, present, and future of the monarchy, struck Charles as profoundly symbolic. Throughout the cocktail reception, Charles observed Kate's interactions with quiet admiration. She spoke fluent French with the Canadian delegation, discussed environmental conservation with the Australian representatives, and listened intently as the Prime Minister of New Zealand shared stories about Maori cultural preservation. Her genuine interest in each conversation was evident, and guests visibly relaxed in her presence. One particularly touching moment occurred when Kate spent nearly 10 minutes speaking with the wife of a visiting ambassador who had recently lost her mother. Kate's ability to offer comfort while maintaining appropriate diplomatic boundaries reminded Charles of Diana's most graceful moments. Yet the interaction was distinctly Kate's own, measured, sincere, and deeply empathetic. As they moved into the dining room, Charles made a spontaneous decision to alter the seating arrangement, placing Kate between two particularly important guests who had expressed interest in her charitable work. The change meant adjusting several other arrangements, but Charles felt it was worth the effort. Kate's conversations often yielded unexpected diplomatic benefits, as her authentic interest in social causes resonated with leaders facing similar challenges in their own countries. During dinner, Charles found himself stealing glances down the table toward Kate, watching as she animated discussions about early childhood development and mental health awareness. Her passion for these subjects was infectious, and he could see other guests leaning in, genuinely engaged with her perspectives. These weren't just polite diplomatic exchanges. They were meaningful connections being forged around shared values. The evening's highlight came during the traditional toasts. Charles had prepared remarks emphasizing the Commonwealth's shared commitment to progress and mutual support. But as he spoke about the values that bound their nations together, compassion, resilience, and hope for future generations, his eyes repeatedly found Kate in the crowd. She represented those values in ways that transcended mere symbolism. After the formal dinner concluded, guests moved to the palace's music room for coffee and informal conversation. Charles noticed how naturally people gravitated toward Kate, seeking her thoughts on everything from education policy to cultural exchange programs. She handled each interaction with grace, never pretending to have expertise she didn't possess, but always offering thoughtful questions and genuine engagement. One visiting prime minister pulled Charles aside to express his appreciation for Kate's knowledge about his country's recent challenges with youth mental health initiatives. Their conversation had sparked ideas for potential collaborations, and he hoped to continue the dialogue through official channels. Charles realized that Kate's authentic interest in social issues was creating diplomatic opportunities that traditional protocols might never have generated. As the evening wound down and final farewells were exchanged, Charles reflected on what he had witnessed. Kate hadn't just attended a state dinner. She had elevated it. Her presence had transformed formal obligations into meaningful human connections, creating goodwill that would extend far beyond that single evening. Walking through the palace corridors as staff began the careful process of cleaning and resetting the grand rooms, Charles felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The evening had confirmed what he had begun to understand more clearly in recent months. Kate was not just a valuable member of their family, but an essential element of the monarchy's continued relevance. In the quiet moments before retiring for the night, Charles reviewed the evening's successes with his private secretary. Multiple ambassadors had requested follow-up meetings to discuss initiatives Kate had mentioned, and several had specifically praised her knowledge and genuine concern for their nation's welfare. These were precisely the kinds of relationships that would strengthen the Commonwealth's bonds for years to come. As he prepared for bed, Charles thought about tomorrow's schedule. It included several meetings where Kate's insights would be valuable, and he had already decided to invite her participation. The monarchy's future depended on people like Kate, individuals who could honor tradition while embracing change, who could represent British values while respecting global diversity. The king's final thought before sleep was a simple one. Kate had become indispensable, not through ambition or calculation, but through authentic dedication to service and a natural ability to connect with people's hearts and minds. The morning of the annual Trooping the Color ceremony dawned bright and clear, perfect weather for one of the most significant events in the royal calendar. Charles stood in his private dressing room, adjusting his ceremonial uniform while his valet made final preparations. Through his window he could see crowds already gathering along the mall, their enthusiasm evident even from a distance. This year's ceremony held special significance for Charles. As his second trooping the color as monarch, he felt more confident in the role, but he also recognized the importance of showcasing the monarchy's future. His decision to give Kate a more prominent position in the day's events had been carefully considered, and he was curious to see how the public would respond. Kate spent her morning in similar preparation, but her thoughts were focused on her children. George and Charlotte would participate in their first full ceremony, riding in the carriage procession and standing on the balcony for the RAF flyover. Louis, still young enough to be unpredictable, would require careful attention to ensure he enjoyed the experience without becoming overwhelmed by the crowd and ceremony. The planning for this year's event had involved numerous subtle but significant changes. Charles had requested that Kate's carriage be positioned more prominently in the procession, and her role in the balcony appearance had been expanded. These adjustments might seem minor to outside observers, but within palace circles, they represented a clear signal about the monarchy's evolving priorities. As the family gathered for final preparations, Charles watched Kate help her children with their ceremonial attire. Her calm presence had a settling effect on everyone around her, from nervous pages to experienced courtiers who had participated in countless royal events. She had developed a remarkable ability to maintain serenity under pressure, a quality that proved invaluable during high-stakes public appearances. The carriage procession began with traditional pomp and circumstance, but Charles noticed something different about the crowd's reaction this year. While cheers greeted his carriage as expected, the volume noticeably increased when Kate's carriage came into view. People pressed forward, phones and cameras raised, eager to catch a glimpse of her and the children. Their genuine enthusiasm was unmistakable and deeply moving. During the ceremony itself, Charles performed his duties with practiced precision, but he remained aware of Kate's presence on the dais. She stood with perfect posture throughout the lengthy proceedings, occasionally bending to whisper explanations to George and Charlotte, helping them understand the significance of what they were witnessing. Her ability to be both dignified and maternal simultaneously struck Charles as remarkable. The moment that would later become the day's most talked-about image occurred, when a sudden gust of wind threatened to disrupt the ceremony. Kate quickly and gracefully managed her hat and dress while simultaneously steadying Charlotte, all without missing a beat or appearing flustered. The moment showcased her poise under pressure and her prioritization of family, even during formal state occasions. After the ceremony, as the family prepared for the traditional balcony appearance, Charles made an impromptu decision. He suggested that Kate stand in a more central position, closer to him during the RAF flyover. The adjustment required quick coordination among protocol officers, but Charles felt it was important to highlight Kate's significance to the monarchy's present and future. When the family stepped onto the balcony, the crowd's response was extraordinary. Cheers erupted from the thousands gathered below, but Charles noticed that many voices specifically called out Kate's name. Children in the crowd waved frantically when they spotted George, Charlotte, and Louis, creating a joyful connection between the royal family and the people they served. The RAF flyover provided the ceremony's climactic moment, but Charles found himself watching Kate's reaction rather than the impressive formation above. She pointed out different aircraft to her children, her face radiating genuine wonder and pride. The image of her as both princess and mother, formal yet accessible, perfectly captured what Charles hoped the monarchy could represent in the modern era. Following the public ceremony, the family gathered for a private lunch at Buckingham Palace. The conversation naturally focused on the day's events, but Charles was particularly interested in Kate's observations about the crowd's reaction. She had noticed the same enthusiasm he had observed, and her insights about connecting with younger audiences proved particularly valuable. Kate shared her thoughts about making royal traditions more accessible to children and families. She had watched young faces in the crowd during the ceremony and recognized opportunities to help them understand and appreciate these important national celebrations. Her suggestions for future events demonstrated her natural instinct for bridging the gap between royal protocol and public engagement. The afternoon brought private meetings with officials who had observed the ceremony. Their feedback confirmed what Charles had suspected. Kate's prominent role had been widely praised, and her natural grace under pressure had impressed even the most seasoned royal watchers. Several mentioned the positive response from international media, noting that Kate's presence had generated significant global interest in the event. One particularly meaningful conversation occurred with a Commonwealth representative who had attended the ceremony. He expressed admiration for Kate's ability to embody both tradition and modernity, suggesting that her presence made the monarchy feel more relevant to younger generations across the Commonwealth nations. These observations aligned perfectly with Charles's own assessment of Kate's growing importance. As evening approached, Charles reviewed footage from the day's events in his private study. The images confirmed his impressions. Kate had been a natural focal point for media attention, but she had handled the spotlight with characteristic grace. Her interactions with her children, her supportive presence beside William, and her obvious comfort with ceremonial requirements had created a compelling narrative about the royal family's future. The social media response to the day's events provided additional confirmation of Kate's impact. Posts featuring her moments with the children had gone viral, reaching audiences who might not typically engage with royal content. Her ability to generate positive coverage without appearing to court attention struck Charles as a particularly valuable quality. Later that evening, during a quiet family dinner, Charles observed the easy dynamics between Kate and the rest of the family. She participated naturally in conversations about the day's successes and challenges, offering thoughtful perspectives while maintaining appropriate respect for hierarchy and protocol. Her comfort within the family structure had evolved remarkably since her early days as William's girlfriend. The children's bedtime routine provided another opportunity for Charles to appreciate Kate's parenting approach. She maintained normal family rhythms even after extraordinary days like Trooping the Color, ensuring that George, Charlotte, and Louis remained grounded despite their unique circumstances. This balance between royal obligations and family life impressed Charles deeply. As he prepared for sleep that night, Charles reflected on the day's significance. Trooping the Color had showcased the monarchy at its most traditional and formal, yet Kate's presence had infused the ancient ceremony with fresh energy and contemporary relevance. Her ability to honor history while appealing to modern sensibilities represented exactly what the institution needed to thrive in the 21st century. The king's final thoughts focused on the future. Today had demonstrated Kate's readiness for an even more prominent role in royal life, and the public's enthusiastic response suggested they were ready to embrace her expanded presence. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to build on the foundation that had been strengthened during this memorable day. The autumn rain drummed steadily against the windows of Clarence's house as Charles sat in his favorite reading chair, a stack of briefing papers balanced on his lap. The lamplight cast a warm glow across the room, creating an atmosphere of quiet contemplation that he cherished during rare moments of solitude. Tonight, however, his thoughts kept drifting from official documents to more personal considerations. Earlier that day, Charles had received a comprehensive report from his communications team about recent public opinion polling. The results had been both enlightening and somewhat surprising, even to someone who had spent decades observing the monarchy's relationship with the British people. Kate's approval ratings had reached unprecedented heights, surpassing even the most optimistic projections from palace advisors. What struck Charles most profoundly was not just the numerical data, but the qualitative feedback that accompanied it. Focus group participants consistently described Kate using words like authentic, relatable, and inspiring. Many expressed feeling that she represented their values and aspirations in ways that made the monarchy feel relevant to their daily lives. These weren't just polite responses to pollsters. They reflected genuine emotional connections. The generational breakdown of the polling data revealed particularly significant trends. Younger respondents, traditionally the most skeptical about royal institutions, showed remarkably positive attitudes toward Kate. Parents frequently mentioned her as a role model for their own children, praising her visible dedication to family while maintaining professional excellence. This combination of personal authenticity and public service resonated powerfully across demographic lines. Charles had also noticed changes in how media coverage approached royal stories. Journalists increasingly sought Kate's perspective on social issues, recognizing that her views carried weight with readers and viewers. Her careful, thoughtful responses to questions about education, mental health, and child welfare had established her as a credible voice on subjects that mattered deeply to ordinary citizens. The international dimension of Kate's growing influence had not escaped Charles's attention either. Recent state visits had demonstrated her remarkable ability to represent British interests while respecting cultural differences. Diplomatic reports consistently praised her preparation, sensitivity, and genuine curiosity about other nations' challenges and achievements. These qualities had opened doors that traditional diplomatic protocols might never have unlocked. One particularly memorable example had occurred during a recent visit to a European capital. Kate's conversation with a group of young entrepreneurs had spontaneously evolved into a discussion about sustainable business practices and social responsibility. The genuine exchange had impressed their hosts and generated positive coverage that extended far beyond typical royal visit reporting. Charles rose from his chair and walked to the window, watching raindrops trace irregular patterns down the glass. The weather reminded him of countless similar evenings throughout his life, moments when he had contemplated the weight of royal responsibility and the challenge of remaining relevant to changing times. Tonight, however, his reflections carried a sense of optimism that had been absent for many years. The transformation in public engagement that Kate brought to royal duties had not happened overnight. Charles had watched her grow into her role gradually, learning to balance accessibility with dignity, warmth with protocol. Her journey from nervous newcomer to confident representative of the crown had been remarkable to witness, and its impact on the monarchy's standing had exceeded even his most hopeful expectations. Recent charitable endeavors had particularly showcased Kate's evolving leadership. Her early childhood development initiative had attracted support from unexpected quarters, including business leaders who rarely engaged with royal causes. Her ability to articulate complex social issues in relatable terms had helped build coalitions that transcended traditional political and class boundaries. Charles remembered a recent board meeting for one of Kate's patronages, where he had observed her facilitate discussions between academics, practitioners, and policymakers. Her skill at finding common ground while maintaining focus on practical outcomes had impressed everyone present. These were not just ceremonial contributions. They represented substantive leadership that produced real results. The evening's solitude allowed Charles to acknowledge feelings that he rarely examined closely. His appreciation for Kate had deepened beyond professional respect into something more personal and profound. She had brought joy back into family gatherings, creating an atmosphere where even formal occasions felt warm and genuine. Her children's laughter had become a regular soundtrack to royal residences, transforming spaces that had sometimes felt too grand and formal. Kate's relationship with her own children provided Charles with constant reminders of what truly mattered. Her determination to give George, Charlotte, and Louis as normal a childhood as possible, within their extraordinary circumstances, reflected values that Charles deeply admired. She protected their privacy fiercely while gradually preparing them for their future roles, a balance that required constant vigilance and wisdom. The king thought about recent conversations with Kate about the children's education and development. Her insights about maintaining family bonds while fulfilling public duties resonated with his own experiences, but her approach brought fresh perspectives that he found valuable. She had learned to compartmentalize obligations without becoming compartmentalized herself, remaining fully present in each moment, whether attending a state function or reading bedtime stories. As the evening progressed, Charles found himself reviewing mental images from recent family gatherings. Kate's easy interaction with different generations of royals had helped bridge gaps that had sometimes created tension in the past. Her respect for tradition combined with gentle suggestions for modernization had made her a valued advisor on matters ranging from ceremonial protocols to charitable strategies. Conversation in particular had stayed with Charles. Kate had shared her observations about how younger generations engaged with royal content through social media and digital platforms. Her suggestions for authentically connecting with these audiences without compromising dignity had led to successful initiatives that expanded the monarchy's reach and relevance. The practical implications of Kate's growing prominence were becoming increasingly clear. Her presence at events virtually guaranteed positive coverage and strong public turnout. Her endorsement of causes attracted attention and resources that might otherwise remain elusive. Most importantly, her genuine commitment to service inspired others to contribute their own efforts toward shared goals. Charles realized that his growing focus on Kate's contributions represented more than personal admiration. It reflected a strategic recognition that the monarchy's future success would depend heavily on individuals who could embody its values while connecting with contemporary concerns. Kate had proven herself capable of both preserving tradition and facilitating necessary evolution. The rain continued its steady rhythm against the windows as Charles prepared to retire for the evening. His mind felt clearer than it had in months, focused on possibilities rather than problems. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to support Kate's growing influence, while ensuring that her contributions received the recognition they deserved. As he turned off the lamp and headed upstairs, Charles carried with him a sense of quiet confidence about the path ahead. The monarchy he would leave to future generations would be stronger because of Kate's presence, more connected to the people they served, and better equipped to navigate the challenges that lay ahead. In focusing more attention on her remarkable qualities and contributions, he was not just acknowledging her individual worth, but investing in the institution's lasting legacy. The Christmas season had always held special significance for the royal family, but this year felt particularly meaningful to Charles as he walked through the decorated corridors of Sandringham House. The ancient Norfolk estate sparkled with traditional decorations, each room carefully arranged to welcome family members who would gather for their customary holiday celebration. This year, however, Charles had made several thoughtful adjustments to long-standing traditions. In the main drawing room, Charles had arranged for Kate to take a more central role in the family's Christmas Day activities. The decision reflected his growing appreciation for her ability to bring warmth and genuine joy to formal occasions. Her natural talent for making everyone feel included and valued had transformed many family gatherings from obligatory events into cherished memories. Kate arrived at Sandringham with William and the children, their excitement palpable as they entered the grand entrance hall. George, Charlotte, and Louis immediately began pointing out familiar decorations while asking questions about new additions. Kate's patient explanations and enthusiastic responses to their curiosity created an atmosphere of wonder that spread throughout the household staff and family members. The traditional Christmas Eve gift exchange provided an early opportunity for Charles to observe Kate's thoughtful approach to family relationships. She had prepared personalized presents for each family member, demonstrating her deep understanding of their individual interests and preferences. Her gift to Charles himself was particularly touching. A leather-bound album of photographs from recent family occasions, with handwritten notes describing the memories associated with each image. As the family gathered for Christmas Eve dinner, Charles made an unexpected announcement. He asked Kate to offer the evening's blessing, a role traditionally reserved for the monarch or most senior family members present. The request caught everyone by surprise, but Kate gracefully accepted the honor, delivering words that perfectly balanced gratitude for their privileges with recognition of their responsibilities to others less fortunate. Throughout the evening, Charles watched Kate navigate complex family dynamics with remarkable skill. She engaged elderly relatives in conversations about their interests, while simultaneously ensuring her children remained well-behaved and included in appropriate discussions. Her ability to be fully present in each interaction, while managing multiple responsibilities, impressed everyone around the table. The Christmas morning church service at St. Mary Magdalene provided another opportunity for Charles to showcase Kate's importance to the family's public image. He arranged for her to walk directly beside him during the procession to and from the church, a position that highlighted her significance to both family members and the crowds of well-wishers who had gathered to greet them. Kate's interaction with the public after the church service exemplified her natural gift for connecting with people from all backgrounds. She spent considerable time speaking with children in the crowd, accepting flowers and drawings with genuine appreciation. Her conversations with adults demonstrated her knowledge of local issues and her sincere interest in their lives and concerns. One particularly moving moment occurred when Kate encountered an elderly woman who had been attending Christmas services at Sandringham for decades. The woman shared memories of previous royal Christmas celebrations, and Kate listened intently, asking thoughtful questions that showed her respect for the traditions she had inherited. Their conversation bridged generations and demonstrated Kate's understanding of her role as a custodian of royal history. During Christmas lunch, Charles made another significant gesture by asking Kate to sit in the position traditionally occupied by the monarch's consort. The placement was subtle but meaningful, signaling her elevated status within the family hierarchy. She handled the responsibility with characteristic grace, helping facilitate conversations while ensuring that all family members felt included in the celebration. The afternoon brought the traditional walk around the Sandringham estate, where Charles and Kate found themselves walking together, slightly ahead of the larger group. Their conversation ranged from observations about the children's development to broader discussions about the monarchy's future challenges and opportunities. Charles valued Kate's perspectives on modernizing royal traditions while maintaining their essential dignity and meaning. Kate's insights about engaging younger generations proved particularly valuable during their walk. She shared observations about how families like those gathered outside the church that morning might view royal traditions, and her suggestions for making these customs more accessible and relevant resonated deeply with Charles. Her ability to see situations from multiple perspectives helped him understand how to evolve without abandoning core values. The evening's entertainment provided yet another showcase for Kate's versatility. She participated enthusiastically in traditional games, while also introducing some contemporary activities that the children especially enjoyed. Her laughter and genuine engagement encouraged other family members to embrace both old and new traditions, creating an atmosphere that honored the past while remaining vibrant and current. As the family gathered around the piano for traditional Christmas carols, Charles observed how naturally Kate had become the evening's emotional center. Her beautiful singing voice led the group through familiar songs, while her warm encouragement helped more reluctant singers participate. The scene perfectly captured what Charles hoped the monarchy could represent: inclusive, joyful, and deeply rooted in shared values. Later that evening, as family members began retiring to their rooms, Charles found a quiet moment to speak privately with Kate. He expressed his gratitude for her contributions to the day's success, and shared his observations about her growing importance to the family's unity and public standing. Their conversation affirmed his conviction that supporting her prominence was essential for the monarchy's continued relevance. Kate's response to his praise demonstrated the humility and wisdom that Charles had come to admire so deeply. She spoke about her sense of responsibility to honor the traditions she had inherited while adapting them for future generations. Her understanding of the delicate balance between continuity and change reflected a maturity that had developed remarkably during her years as a working royal. The Christmas Day BBC broadcast provided a final opportunity for Charles to highlight Kate's significance. In his recorded message, he made specific mention of her contributions to royal charitable work and her dedication to family values. These references, while brief, carried considerable weight coming from the monarch and signaled his official recognition of her importance. As the day concluded, Charles reflected on how Kate's presence had elevated every aspect of their Christmas celebration. From her thoughtful gift-giving to her gracious public interactions, from her leadership during family activities to her genuine warmth in private moments, she had demonstrated qualities that made her invaluable to both family harmony and royal effectiveness. The Boxing Day plans included several public engagements, where Charles intended to feature Kate prominently. These appearances would provide additional opportunities to showcase her contributions while continuing to build public appreciation for her role in the monarchy's future. Each event was carefully planned to highlight her strengths while supporting the broader royal mission. In the quiet moments before sleep, Charles felt profound satisfaction about the direction his reign was taking. By focusing increased attention on Kate's remarkable qualities and contributions, he was not only acknowledging her individual worth but also investing in the institutional changes necessary for long-term success. The Christmas celebration had provided perfect examples of how tradition and innovation could work together to create something both meaningful and enduring. The early spring sunshine streamed through the windows of Kensington Palace as Charles, made his way to an unprecedented private meeting with Kate. The significance of this encounter had been weighing on his mind for weeks, as he prepared to discuss ideas that would fundamentally reshape the monarchy's future direction. The formal setting belied the deeply personal nature of the conversation they were about to have. Charles had requested this meeting without William's presence, an unusual decision that reflected the gravity of what he hoped to accomplish. Over recent months, his observations about Kate's exceptional qualities and growing public influence had crystallized into a clear vision for enhancing her role within the royal family structure. Today, he would share these thoughts directly with her. Kate arrived precisely on time, her composed demeanor masking any curiosity about the meeting's unusual circumstances. She had grown accustomed to Charles's thoughtful approach to royal responsibilities, but his request for a private audience had suggested something significant was developing. Her respect for his judgment and their growing personal bond had made accepting the invitation natural, despite its unexpected nature. The initial conversation began with Charles expressing his gratitude for Kate's contributions to recent royal engagements. He referenced specific moments from Christmas celebrations, state dinners, and public appearances where her presence had elevated the entire event. His praise was detailed and genuine, reflecting careful observation of her impact on both family dynamics and public perception. Kate received these compliments with characteristic grace, deflecting personal credit while acknowledging the collaborative nature of royal work. Her responses demonstrated the humility that Charles had come to admire, but he gently insisted that she understand the unique value she brought to their shared mission. This recognition was essential to the larger conversation he hoped to have. Charles then began sharing his broader vision for the monarchy's evolution. He spoke about the challenges facing traditional institutions in rapidly changing times, and the need for representatives who could bridge generational and cultural divides. His words carefully built toward the central proposition he wanted to present, but he took time to ensure Kate understood the context for his thinking. The king explained his observations about public response to her presence at various events. He cited specific examples of positive media coverage, favorable polling data, and diplomatic feedback that highlighted her effectiveness as a royal representative. These weren't merely personal opinions, but documented evidence of her impact on the monarchy's standing and influence. Kate listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions that demonstrated her understanding of the complex factors influencing royal effectiveness. Her questions revealed sophisticated thinking about public service and institutional responsibility, confirming Charles's assessment of her readiness for expanded authority and visibility. When Charles finally presented his central proposal, the room fell silent. He wanted to create new protocols that would position Kate more prominently in official ceremonies, state functions, and international engagements. These changes would represent a significant departure from traditional precedence rules, but Charles believed they were necessary to maximize the monarchy's contemporary relevance and effectiveness. The proposed changes were substantial and carefully considered. Kate would receive enhanced roles in Commonwealth relations, expanded authority over certain charitable initiatives, and greater visibility in ceremonial functions. Charles emphasized that these adjustments reflected not personal favoritism but strategic recognition of her unique qualifications and public appeal. Kate's initial response was characteristically thoughtful and measured. She expressed appreciation for Charles's confidence while acknowledging the responsibility that such prominence would entail. Her questions focused on practical implications and the potential impact on other family members, demonstrating her awareness of the complex dynamics involved in royal hierarchy. Charles addressed her concerns directly, explaining how these changes would complement, rather than diminish, other family members' roles. His vision involved leveraging everyone's strengths more effectively, with Kate's natural gifts for public engagement and authentic communication positioned at the center of the monarchy's public face. The conversation then turned to specific implementation strategies. Charles had developed detailed plans for gradually introducing these changes in ways that would feel natural and organic to both family members and the public. His approach emphasized evolution rather than revolution, respecting traditions while adapting them for contemporary circumstances. Kate's questions about the children's roles in this evolving structure led to one of the meeting's most important discussions. Charles shared his thoughts about preparing George, Charlotte, and Louis for their future responsibilities while protecting their childhood development. Kate's insights about balancing public duties with family life proved invaluable to refining these plans. As the conversation progressed, Kate began offering her own ideas about maximizing the proposed changes' effectiveness. Her suggestions about charitable focus areas, international relationship building, and public engagement strategies impressed Charles with their sophistication and practical wisdom. These exchanges confirmed his belief that she was ready for expanded responsibility. The discussion of potential challenges revealed Kate's realistic understanding of royal life's complexities. She acknowledged that increased prominence would bring intensified scrutiny and higher expectations, but expressed confidence in her ability to meet these demands. Her measured assessment of both opportunities and risks demonstrated mature judgment that reinforced Charles's conviction. One particularly significant moment occurred when Kate asked about the long-term vision behind these proposed changes. Charles explained his hopes for the monarchy's future, emphasizing the need for representatives who could inspire young people, bridge cultural differences, and embody values that resonated across diverse communities. Kate's ability to fulfill these aspirations made her central to his strategic thinking. The meeting's conclusion focused on next steps and timeline considerations. Charles proposed a gradual implementation process that would allow for adjustments based on public response and practical experience. Kate's agreement to move forward represented a pivotal moment in both her personal journey and the monarchy's institutional development. As they prepared to end their formal discussion, Charles took a moment to express his personal feelings about Kate's role in their family. Beyond her public contributions, she had brought joy, stability, and renewed purpose to royal life. Her influence on family gatherings, her dedication to the children's well-being, and her supportive presence during challenging times had earned his deep admiration and affection. Kate's response revealed her own emotional investment in the royal family's success and her commitment to serving with distinction. She spoke about her sense of privilege in representing the monarchy and her determination to honor the trust placed in her. These exchanges strengthened the personal bond that would support their professional collaboration. The meeting ended with both participants feeling optimistic about the path ahead. Charles had successfully communicated his vision and secured Kate's partnership in implementing significant changes. Kate had demonstrated her readiness for expanded responsibility while maintaining the humility and wisdom that made her so effective. Walking back through Kensington Palace's corridors, Charles felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Today's conversation had formalized recognition of what had been evident for months: Kate's exceptional qualifications for leadership within the royal family. The changes they had discussed would benefit both the monarchy's effectiveness and its long-term sustainability. In the days that followed, Charles began the careful process of implementing their agreed-upon changes, confident that he was making decisions that would strengthen the monarchy for generations to come. 6 months had passed since Charles's transformative conversation with Kate, and the results of their carefully planned changes had exceeded even his most optimistic expectations. Standing in his private study at Buckingham Palace on a crisp autumn morning, Charles reviewed reports that painted a remarkable picture of the monarchy's renewed vitality and public connection. The latest polling data told a compelling story of institutional renaissance. Public approval ratings for the monarchy had reached their highest levels in decades, with Kate's influence cited as a primary factor in this dramatic improvement. More significantly, support among younger demographics had surged, reversing years of declining engagement with royal institutions among millennials and Generation Z. International recognition of Kate's impact had been equally impressive. Diplomatic reports from recent state visits highlighted her exceptional effectiveness as a cultural ambassador, with several countries specifically requesting her participation in future bilateral discussions. Her ability to connect with diverse audiences while representing British values had opened new avenues for diplomatic engagement and cultural exchange. Charles reflected on the subtle but profound ways Kate's elevated role had transformed royal operations. Her increased prominence in ceremonial functions had brought fresh energy to traditional events, while her expanded charitable leadership had attracted unprecedented support for causes ranging from early childhood development to mental health awareness. These weren't merely cosmetic improvements, but substantive enhancements to the monarchy's effectiveness. The implementation of their agreed-upon changes had proceeded smoothly, with public and media response overwhelmingly positive. Kate's enhanced visibility at state occasions had felt natural and appropriate, generating widespread praise for her grace and authenticity. Her expanded role in Commonwealth relations had strengthened bonds with member nations and created new opportunities for meaningful collaboration. One particularly successful initiative had been Kate's leadership of a major international conference on childhood development. Her ability to bring together experts, policymakers, and practitioners from around the world had produced concrete commitments for improved children's services. The event had showcased her knowledge, passion, and diplomatic skills while generating significant positive coverage for the monarchy. Charles smiled as he remembered Kate's handling of a recent, challenging diplomatic situation. When tensions arose during a state visit, her thoughtful intervention had helped diffuse potential conflicts and refocus discussions on shared interests. Her combination of cultural sensitivity and principled advocacy had impressed even seasoned diplomats, confirming her value as a royal representative. The positive impact on family dynamics had been equally meaningful to Charles. Kate's enhanced status had brought new confidence to her interactions with other family members, while her continued humility had prevented any disruption to established relationships. Her ability to accept greater responsibility, while maintaining warm personal connections, had strengthened the entire family structure. Recent conversations with William had revealed his pride and support for Kate's growing prominence. Rather than feeling overshadowed, he had embraced opportunities to support her initiatives while developing his own areas of focus. Their partnership had evolved to leverage both of their strengths more effectively, creating a formidable team for royal representation. The children's adjustment to their mother's increased visibility had been remarkably smooth. George, Charlotte, and Louis continued to enjoy normal childhood experiences, while gradually understanding their family's unique responsibilities. Kate's skill at maintaining this balance had impressed Charles and provided a model for raising future generations of royals. Media coverage of the changes had been overwhelmingly supportive, with commentators praising Charles's strategic thinking and Kate's graceful acceptance of expanded duties. Rather than viewing the adjustments as controversial departures from tradition, most observers had recognized them as thoughtful adaptations to contemporary circumstances. One columnist had written particularly insightfully about the changes, noting that Kate's prominence represented continuity with the monarchy's historical tradition of adapting to serve each generation's needs. This perspective had helped frame the developments positively, emphasizing evolution rather than revolution. Charles had been particularly pleased by international media response. Publications around the world had praised Kate's authenticity and effectiveness, with many noting her positive impact on Britain's global image. Her ability to represent modern British values while respecting cultural differences had enhanced the country's soft power in measurable ways. The financial implications of Kate's increased prominence had also proven positive. Royal events featuring her prominently had generated increased tourism revenue, while her charitable initiatives had attracted significant private donations. These practical benefits had helped address critics who questioned the monarchy's economic value. Recent charitable fundraising figures had been particularly impressive. Kate's personal involvement in campaign launches and donor cultivation had resulted in record-breaking support for her patronages. Her authentic passion for the causes she championed had inspired others to contribute generously, multiplying the impact of her advocacy. As Charles prepared for the day's engagements, he felt deep satisfaction about the direction his reign had taken. The strategic decision to focus greater attention on Kate's contributions had strengthened every aspect of royal operations, from ceremonial functions to charitable work, to international relations. The morning's schedule included a meeting with advisors to discuss plans for the coming year. These conversations would build on the success of recent changes, while identifying new opportunities to leverage Kate's growing influence. Charles looked forward to exploring how they might further enhance the monarchy's effectiveness and relevance. Walking through the palace corridors toward his first appointment, Charles encountered staff members whose energy and enthusiasm reflected the institution's renewed vitality. The positive atmosphere throughout royal households had been one of the most rewarding aspects of recent developments, confirming that the changes had benefits extending far beyond public perception. His final stop before the meeting was a brief visit to review photographs from Kate's recent solo engagement at a children's hospital. The images captured her natural warmth and genuine concern for young patients, qualities that had made her such an effective royal representative. These weren't posed publicity shots, but authentic moments of human connection. As Charles entered the meeting room where his advisors waited, he carried with him confidence about the monarchy's future. The strategic focus on Kate's exceptional qualities had proven successful beyond all expectations, creating a foundation for continued growth and public service. The transformation had been gradual but profound. In choosing to highlight Kate's contributions and expand her role, Charles had not only recognized her individual worth, but had also positioned the monarchy for sustained success in an ever-changing world. The institution had emerged stronger, more relevant, and better equipped to serve future generations. Looking ahead, Charles saw countless opportunities to build on these foundations. Kate's proven effectiveness and growing confidence suggested that even greater achievements lay ahead. The monarchy had found its voice for the modern era, and that voice belonged to someone who embodied the best of both tradition and innovation. In the quiet moments before the meeting began, Charles reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. What had started as personal admiration for Kate's qualities had evolved into strategic recognition of her institutional value. The decision to focus greater attention on her contributions had transformed not just her role, but the entire monarchy's trajectory toward a future filled with promise and possibility.